I'm notorious for losing signal.
It says
And
broadcast is live on
perfect,
mine,
we're live.
so I think we're
Uh,
live.
yes, welcome back. It's been a while, and tonight I'm very happy to have Jeana from Traditional Tattoo from San Luis Obispo, California. Jeana, thank you um, for doing this and sitting down with me and talking about kind of what you do and where you came from. So to start this off, can you just give an introduction for us?
Sure. My name is Jeana Jane. I am a 10-year tattooer by trade. That's my main career. I work out of Traditional Tattoo in San Luis. I've been there for about 8 years now. Um, it's been a really great adventure for me to be a tattooer for a living. I kind of get to feed my art beast in a very different way. And then the other kind of things that I've picked up along the way, I mean, I was raised by an artist mom, so I've been around the arts my whole life. My mom was an oil painter, and that's definitely where I started, was just kind of emulating the things that I saw from my mom. I figured out in my adult years that I don't really like landscape painting and canvas painting the same way that my mom does. So then when I met Dave and Dave and I got together, it kind of opened up another realm of painting for me in a different way. So now I've done, a couple handfuls of motorcycle helmets and a few kind of offshot things like that with one shot. I would by no means say that I am a one shot artist, but I have definitely played around with that medium a few times. Um, and then a few years ago, I guess it would have been about 6 years ago now, I picked up wood burning as a honestly as kind of a hobby. I wanted something that would be easy for me to get out and then put away when it was time to put it away. Painting is a lot harder. There's a lot more stuff that goes along with it,
Hmm.
and being a mom and a wife and a full-time career person, it just left very little time for me to like really feel like I could get into painting and stuff like that. And so I found wood burning, and honestly, I just thought that I would maybe do some like Christmas presents, and that would be kind. It would be like a crafting hobby for
Uh-huh.
me. And then I got into it, and it speaks my language. It's very similar to tattooing. It's got a lot of the same hand movements. It's got a lot of the same like kind of creative process as tattooing. But it sits still and it doesn't tell me what to do. And I
Mhm.
really enjoy that part of it very much. Um, so wood burning, like kind of by chance, has become almost a full time second career for me, which has been really, really great, but totally unforeseen.
I know you guys do. Like you are busy, not only like tattooing and everything, and the painting, but the adventures. You go places like road
We do.
trips and do
We do.
shows. Um, how is that? Like, do you take everything on the road?
So what Dave and I will often do is we like spend months prepping at home here for shows. So when we know we've got like the few shows that Dave and I do every year is we do Born Free and we do Chopper Fest and we almost always do the Ventura Nationals also. And then we usually will try and throw in a random one or two shows a year of kind of doing, where we get asked to go or whatever. And so what we'll do is we both kind of have like a 3 month window where we know like Born Free is in June. And so like in April, we start really buckling down here at home and we spend all of our extra time just kind of making artwork and all of that stuff. Um, I rarely bring like my tattoo equipment on the road with me because I am so busy here all the
Hmm.
time. I'm tattooing at least 5 days, or well, at least 4 days a week, and more often than not, five or six. So when I'm traveling, kind of the last thing I want to do is
That's
tattoo on
uh
top
huh.
of that because it's not a vacation for me or
Hmm.
it's not a change of pace for me.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm pretty lucky in my shop that I don't need to do guest spots to keep myself relevant. Like
Hmm.
we've got enough people kind of coming through my shop and enough work that I don't really have to do that. So usually when I'm traveling, it's all just artwork and just like either burning or, Dave and I will paint on the fly when we're at shows sometimes,
Hmm.
but more often than not, it's Dave's painting and I'm just kind of running the booth and doing the PR kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but we really, I mean, Dave and I love to go. We love being on the road. Dave and I have definitely seen a ton of this country by small highway and byways.
And
And
that
we love it.
sweet
It's
van.
like, it's our favorite thing to do. And the
Uh-huh.
Thunder Pig definitely helps.
Oh
The
yes.
Thunder Pig is its own beast.
Well, I seen you said like you just said you're like you didn't about one shot, and I think you are a one shot artist. I did see you paint that helmet when we were in Kentucky, um, and they did have a huge skull, like a
It did.
cow skull,
It had like
um,
a deer skull and
the
then
red rocks, right? Or
yeah, it had the
yeah,
Memorial
yeah,
Highway scene from like
yeah,
Sedona,
yeah,
Arizona. Yeah,
yeah.
it was pretty
So,
cool.
yeah, I know you were working on that thing too during the day. I remember we were
That
taking
was my
breaks.
second ever helmet.
And what was the one you just did? I don't, how long ago you just did like you did some gold leaf work also, didn't you?
Yeah, that was for Babes Ride Out is a female only motorcycle show that happens once a year here on the West Coast. And I do believe that they are doing one on the East Coast now also. Um, and it's awesome for all the females out there that ride motorcycles. Babes Ride Out is like super a really cool event to go to. They actually teach women how to work on their own bikes and how to change their own
Hmm.
tires and how
That's
to
cool.
do all of that kind of stuff,
Uh-huh.
and they do it in an environment that's really inclusive and you don't feel like kind of the weird lady that's just asking for help from all the
Hmm.
guys. um, and they do an artist thing every year where they will send out helmets and leather jackets and a couple motorcycle tanks to different artists and have them paint them. And I've done helmets for them 2 years in a row now, 3 years in a row now I've done
Well,
helmets for them.
and so that helmet you did, of course, they had that gold leaf in it. Did you just start doing the gold leaf, or like how did that come about? Because I know that's a hard process, and I'm always like I'm too scared to even touch it.
You shouldn't be scared of it, Johnny. It's just a thing. It is a process to learn, and it is something that you'll screw up more times than you feel like you should before you kind of get it.
Hmm.
But it's definitely not. It's not difficult. It's touchy.
Hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense. Like it's not difficult. It's pretty easy in like technical terms to gold leaf, but it's touchy stuff. And every
Hmm.
time you do it, it's a little bit different. Um, I started gold leafing because I get to sit here and I get to watch Dave.
Hmm.
If you guys don't know who did City Slicker Pinstriper, he's my husband. He does all kinds of crazy artwork. He's an insane beast. But I have been watching him work for 10 years now, right? And the
Hmm.
gold leaf stuff is just something that I'm always kind of like you just said, I'm always fascinated by it. It just always looks, it takes whatever you're doing and just like ups the ante
Hmm.
of how beautiful it can be. And it's just this really neat process to watch someone do too, like just all the you lay it down and it's all these like
Hmm.
little thin butterfly wings and then they fluff it off and then there's something beautiful underneath it. So
Hmm.
I've just been really interested in the process of it. And then I started I think it was about 3 years ago I started wood burning skateboards after we were at Rushmasters in
Uh-huh.
Kentucky because Darren McKay had wood burned a skateboard. And at that point, I had been wood burning like wood rounds and
Hmm.
different like plaques and things like that. But I hadn't.
That's I have one sitting beside me.
Oh, there you go.
I have one of yours because I got an awesome care package from you
Oh yeah,
and
I
Dave,
remember saying
and
that.
you included one. It was like a surprise. Like it was just like it was Christmas. It was like gift after gift after gift. So I have one of the Sailor Jerry ones you did, um,
Yeah,
right here.
there we go.
Um, but that's why I like your style, like even like your tattoo style. You can transfer that over to the wood burning, and then you just like stepped it up and you added the gold leaf. And I saw that skateboard deck you did with the huge skull and the gold leaf.
I
That
have that sitting here. I brought it
oh
so
my
that I could show you.
gosh, Do you
Yeah.
on those skateboards? Do you do like a clear coat or a resin on those?
Yeah, I do a two-part epoxy
Hmm.
resin coating on it. That I just get it at Home Depot.
Hmm.
It's called glaze coat. That process of processes, that one is a little more tricky. To get the epoxy to cure correctly and without stuff in it and without getting like fruit flies landing in all of your shit and stuff like that. It's quite it's quite a process to
So
get to where you kind of have everything set up the way you need it to. But I've been doing it for a few years now, so
it's like
I've got it dialed
after
in.
after you put all that time into something, that's got to be the most frustrating part. Is like pouring resin and going, please, nothing fall in this. Like I hope I get all the bubbles out.
Or like everything looks perfect before you go to bed, and
Uh
then you wake up in the morning and there's like a fucking large house fly just
huh.
right in the middle of, and then you're like sitting there and you're trying to like dig out all the little legs and
Oh
sand off
no.
just that one little spot, and then you have to pour the
Pour
whole thing
over. Oh
again,
gosh.
and hope it doesn't happen
Yeah.
again. So there are some things of mine where if you look close enough, you'll
Th-
see a little fly wing
It's
somewhere that I just
yeah.
have
It's
not
just like
shit about because I've
a
tried
little
too many times.
treasure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you
It's like
find it, it's there for you.
yeah.
That's
Yeah. It's
right.
like where's Waldo?
Exactly.
Yeah. So did you? So you didn't have like um, a traditional background, or I guess an art traditional art education background growing up. It was like all your mom, right?
Yeah, I've never taken an art class outside of what I could take in high school. Which in high school I did take every thing that they would let me take. I
Mm-hmm.
tried a bunch of different stuff in high school, but other than that, I really haven't had any formal training.
Mm-hmm.
I've been really lucky in my life that I've known a lot of artists in a lot of different mediums, and I've been able to ask questions and directions from a vast majority of different kinds of people. Um, and then I think it was just being born to a creative
Mm-hmm.
and being raised in a creative household. It always gave me the opportunity to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
It was always okay. It was always okay that I was trying different stuff or doing weird shit or whatever.
Well, I
So
think it's cool that it goes to show that you don't you don't have to come from a university
yeah,
like it or
your
like to
pedigree doesn't matter. It
yeah
just
yeah
matters how hard you're willing
like
to work for
yeah
it.
hard work, consistency, heart, a lot of heart. It's there like there's a lot of ups and downs and
That brings up the skill and talent, right?
mm-hmm.
It's very easy to look at people and be like, "Oh, you're so talented. You're so talented. You're so
Mm-hmm.
talented." You can be talented, but unless you put your time into your skill, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter. So really it's skilled. You're very
Mm-hmm.
skilled. If you're very good at anything, it's because you're skilled. It's because you've taken whatever born in talent you got
Mm-hmm.
and then you worked your fucking ass off to like hone that down into a skill,
Uh-huh. I don't
Yeah.
think like not a lot of people don't see what people put into it. Like, we can see things on social media and it's like, oh man, it always makes it look like someone picked it up like that night or that day or whatever within a month. I
Yeah.
don't think people
Yeah.
realize how much work, you said you've been doing this for like what, 8 to 10 years.
I've been tattooing for
Yeah.
10 years now. And I've been wood burning for about 6. Yeah. It's funny because an Instagram of the life that we lead right now, this online kind of platform life
Mm-hmm.
that we lead, doesn't often. I don't know. If you look at my Instagram, a lot of times I do try and post like process photos and
Mm-hmm.
process videos and things like that because I want people to see that it's not just this end result thing that I hold up and you get to see a picture of it. It's
Mm-hmm.
all of this like painstaking work that goes into it. And I mean it's passionate work, so it's always accepted and always good,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a lot more than most people think. Yeah.
It takes time.
The skateboards that I do on average take me between 30 and about 50 hours of work by the time I'm done with it. Like if we're talking like design time for the design,
Mm-hmm.
prep work for the skateboard, stencil laying, burn time, gold leaf, epoxy pour, hanger on the back, by the time we're done
Yeah.
with all of those things, it looks like it's really awesome.
Uh-huh.
But then by the time I'm done with it and I sell it, I've paid myself less than $10 an hour to
Mm-hmm.
do the thing, which I'm super still stoked with. But, it's definitely a lot more work than I think. Being an artist sounds so cool.
Mm-hmm.
In reality, it is so much different than just being so cool,
What led you what led you into the tattooing, like starting there? Like, you probably didn't get a start there. I mean, were you doing other things before, like painting and stuff, before you got into tattooing, or?
Yeah, like I mean, I've been a painter, like a canvas painter,
Mm-hmm.
for as long as I can really remember. I've been
Mm-hmm.
doing some sort of either acrylic or oil canvas work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so when I got into tattooing um, at the time, I was just starting to get back into kind of painting on canvas because I was a single mom for a lot of years, and there was a few years there where the girls were just too little and crazy for me to focus on any sort of
Mm-hmm.
artwork of my own. And so I had just kind of gotten back into doing some canvas paintings, and I had just sold like two or three of them, nothing crazy, but just enough to kind of feed the beast of like, oh,
Uh-huh.
okay, I need to do more of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people that tattooing kind of found me. I had always loved body art. I had always loved tattooing. I had always thought that tattoos were beautiful. I always knew that I wanted to be covered in tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, I don't think I didn't know anybody that was like a career tattooer. And I kind of thought that nobody was a career tattooer. You tattooed, but then you had some other job that like
Uh-huh.
made you real money, because people didn't make real money tattooing. In my head, that was the way it was or whatever. And I uh, I was about 2 months from signing myself up to graphic design school, because I knew that I
Uh-huh.
needed something creative.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I needed to not work retail anymore. I knew that I needed to like feed this thing in me somewhere. But I also knew that I didn't want to, I had no desire to do computer work. I had no desire to sit at a computer and do stupid companies' letterheads or whatever. But I knew that, like, fuck, graphic design is almost the only way that you can make like a legitimate
Mm-hmm.
living, according to other people or society or whatever, being an artist. And so I was like, well, I guess that's what I got to do. So I had like looked into that. I had talked to an advisor. I had gotten myself all ready. I was going to go the fall quarter that year, and start. And I think it was like right in August, a friend of mine had called me, and she was at a tattoo shop, and she was like, come on down. I know you have a little tattoo that you drew for yourself in your wallet that you want to get done, and I'll buy it for you. And I was like, okay, sounds great. And I
Uh-huh.
went down to the tattoo shop, and it was the first tattoo that I had ever gotten that I could watch the whole thing happen. It was on my arm, and I was able to like just kind of see the whole, it wasn't on my back or somewhere
Mm-hmm.
where I couldn't watch what was happening. And I think my mind was just in the right place to see the opportunity that was sitting there. I think is what happened. Was I was so open to this idea of needing personal freedom, needing career freedom, needing artistic freedom, just all of that stuff was so huge in my life at that moment, that I was able to kind of sit in this tattoo shop, and I looked around and I was like, God, these guys dress however they want and they talk however they want, and they're cussing up a storm and nobody cares. And just all of that, like,
Uh-huh.
just personal freedom I was seeing in these guys. And I was really attracted to the idea of doing art. But I think more than anything, I was really attracted to the idea of being authentically me at
Being
work
yourself.
or at home,
Mm-hmm.
right? I had worked all these retail jobs where you had to be like Gap appropriate or like, all of this stuff. And that just doesn't fit me. I'm so unapologetically this person, and I can't really turn it off for other people. And so like that was really what attracted me to being a tattoo artist. And so that day I asked the guy, I was like, how do you get into tattooing? I'd never heard of anyone going to college or anything like that. And he was like, go find an apprenticeship, but good luck. Cause this was 12 years ago,
Uh-huh.
and there was not a lot of females that were tattooing in my area. There was like two, I think, in my whole like greater area that I was in. Um, so then I had some drawings that I had done. I had on my own just tried to like emulate some traditional tattoos that I had
Mm-hmm.
seen, and just tried to draw things that were mine but
Mm-hmm.
looked like tattoos, right?
Did you start at where you're at now?
No, I
Did you
started at a shop called Octopus Ink up in Tacoma, Washington. The
Okay.
shop's not there anymore. It's been closed down for a few years now, but they were the people who gave me my start up there.
Okay.
Um, no, if I'd have been in California to start that far ago, I don't think I would have gotten the same gender discrimination
Uh-huh.
is a good way to put that, because it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't even like it was discrimination, but it just there just wasn't a lot of females around where
Mm-hmm.
I was, and none of these guys wanted a girl to come in and potentially ruin their boy party that was happening at their shop, and so it's just a little harder. But I think if I'd have been in California to start, I might not have gotten that same reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And now, so you said 10 years, right? 10 years here.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you're still tattooing, wood burning. What is the next thing you're looking at, or uh like working towards?
Uh, I mean, the next thing that I would be working towards would be having my own private studio. That's probably the next move that
Mm-hmm.
I need to make, just to make myself feel like I'm working for my future, right? I love
Mm-hmm.
my shop. I love my coworkers. I like where I work. It's by no means anything that I feel like I need to like leave them or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. But I do feel like the next natural progression in my career is me having my own like little private studio that I
Mm-hmm.
can wood burn and tattoo and do some sign painting in, and do just kind of have an art studio that also includes
Mm-hmm.
tattooing is
Do you
kind
think
of, I think, the next progression for me and Dave.
more appointment based kind of thing? And
Yeah, well, I'm
uh,
all appointment based
okay.
now anyway. I haven't done walk-ins in a good couple years now because I'm just full
So
enough,
busy. Mm-hmm.
and I try not to take that from the guys at our shop that do kind of need the
Mm-hmm.
walk-ins or building a clientele or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So yeah, I think the next progression is for Dave and I both to find a place where we can both comfortably work out of that includes tattooing somewhere in there. But that's still probably a couple years off. We've got a
Mm-hmm.
16-year-old at home that we've got to get through school and stuff. And because I'm so comfortable with where I work now, I'll probably stay there until she graduates, just to
Mm-hmm.
kind of keep things normal for her. And then it'll allow me the space to kind of focus on it the way I want to too.
Do you guys have any so that we talked about the adventures and travel? Do you guys have any trips coming up? Any shows coming up?
I mean, COVID put a pretty large
Yeah.
damper on the fucking shows that can happen, but
Uh-huh.
um, we've heard rumors that Born Free is supposed to happen in August. And if that does go through, we've got a booth there and we'll be there. And right now, the only trips that we have planned are just like personal trips. Like my oldest daughter moved up to Washington at the beginning of all this COVID business. And
Mm-hmm.
so we haven't been up there to see her. So we're going to go up and see my family and see my daughter. Um, and then I think we have a couple camping trips. We want to take the pup, the new pup into the
Oh
van
yeah.
and get
Yes.
camping and stuff like that. So this summer will be little short trips so that the
Mm-hmm.
puppy can get used to sleeping in the Thunder Pig with us.
That's I'm ready to see these things, especially with the new dog. Um, because I know we were talking before. I was like, you're like, he might make an appearance.
Oh, I can
He
make him
might
make an
he might
appearance.
make an appearance. I can see you. You
Oh,
guys have
look,
been posting
there
something.
he is
See,
on cue. On cue, you little
from
golden bear. Come here. Johnny wants to see you. Whoa.
oh you're right. He has gotten bigger.
This is our golden bear Wallace.
Oh my gosh.
He's 15 weeks old and he is wonderful.
How much how we were just talking earlier. How big has he gotten? Moving
Right
wise.
now he weighs about 30 pounds. And when we got him, he was about 25 or 24 or something like
Hmm.
that. So he's put on about 5 or 7 pounds this week.
Oh my God.
He's a big baby. He's an old
Uh,
man in a puppy suit.
uh, is he pretty timid and like wants to sleep, or like a puppy just
This
kind of wants to run around?
this is him all the time.
A nice lap dog.
All
What?
right,
Oh my
there
gosh.
you go, little
So what?
man.
So people like one of the things for this podcast was like giving people the opportunity, kind of like to hear from someone actually doing it, and like get tips and tricks or whatever,
Okay.
what you know what advice do you have for somebody that wants to start start painting or start wood burning? Where do you recommend they start off? What kind of things they need to get, or where they need to look for information on these kind of things?
Totally. So I'll focus more maybe on wood burning because that's probably where my actual like knowledge would be at. I asked
Hmm.
Dave a lot of stuff about painting, so I don't know if I have the best knowledge for
I
all of
I
that.
ask him I ask him too.
It's he's a wealth of knowledge. He's like owning a little encyclopedia next to you. It's really great. It's really great. So for wood burning, I always tell people, and this is just my own opinion, I always tell people to start cheap, and if you like it, move yourself up, right? Like start with, if you're going to draw something, go buy a pack of Crayola markers and start there, and then if you really like it,
Hmm.
maybe move yourself up, right? And tools. Um, One of the problems with wood burning, though, is that the gap between hobby and good is huge financially. So like you can go to Michael's and you can get yourself a $15 wood burner and it is going to do a decent job. It'll do enough of a job that if you get all the way through your project with that wood burner, you probably like it enough that you could then go pay for a more expensive one that's going to do a better job. Um, I'll give a little shout out really quick to, I'll show you because I've got it right here. So this is the wood burner that I use. It's called a Razor Tip SSD10. This thing is definitely much more on the professional side of things because of how expensive it is. The wood burner itself, like this box, and then your set of little pins that you actually do the
That's
burning
like an
with.
old school. That looks like a power supply.
It does, and
Yeah.
it to be fair, it's not far off of a
That.
power supply. It's very, very similar to an old 10-digit
Yeah.
potentiometer for sure. Um, I told you the similarities between tattooing and wood burning are they're so there that if you're a tattooer first and you get into wood burning, it's very, very easy. I don't think that it would be the same if you were a wood burner and you were jumping into tattooing.
Hmm.
But but this razor tip is like for the kit, it's about $400. So I always tell people it's not worth buying if all you're going to do is make Christmas ornaments. Just truck it through with the cheap one because
Hmm.
there's no reason to pay that much money if you're not going to be doing things that you're making money off of, right?
Now, are there different tips and things that you like? I guess different size tips for. 'Cause I don't even know what is that called that you use.
Where's my camera? So these are wood burning pins, and it just plugs into like an RCA cord. Sorry, I'm trying to
Oh
find my
no, yeah, oh, I can see that. Yep.
plugs into an RCA cord, and then it heats up, and the white part and all of this gets like red hot if you have it up high, right?
Hmm.
So see how this one is like a little teeny, let me see if I can focus it. See how it's a little tiny ball
Hmm.
right on the very top there?
Is that what you're burning with?
So this is one of the things I'm burning with. This is a thing that I do a lot of dot work with. I sign
Hmm.
my name with this one. I write lettering with this one. Then there's like that one that's just like a flat, tip
Hmm.
that you can use to like fill things in with and just kind of make things solid black. And then, I mean, you name it, you can get as many of these fucking things as you. It's almost like leather work, where you can like get 1.5 million leather tools,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like I've got a few of these ones with the balls on them. And these are what they call stylus pins, and you can use these for, like I said, writing letters, anything that you would be wanting like a nice flow of like a single line, you can use these ball ones with. There's an even bigger ball. I also will do a
Wow.
lot of my solid black stuff where I just do these little tiny dots, and I just burn in little dots, and it gives kind of an interesting little texture with these round ones. And then so these two are what they call a knife.
Oh yeah, they do kind of look like blades.
Yep, it's just like a little skinny blade.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'll do with these is I cut all my outlines in with these. So all of the, and I'll show you in just a second because I've got some stuff sitting here. But so all of the outlines I do, just like with a tattoo liner, right? I line everything with these knives because they just put a really nice, consistent, thin line in. And then you can go back and you can kind of fill in. So then with the fill stuff, there's a few different things here, and I don't know if I'll be able to get them all
Uh-huh.
on the camera. So this is like a flat, um, kind of like, I don't know, foot, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you would call that. But this one you can use to like shade things out. So you're like, fading a shade so that it's like real dark to kind of
Mm-hmm.
lighter. Um, This one is what they call a spoon shader, and it's got a little bit of like a kind of a rounded spoon shape to it, and it's even a little convex down there, so it's a little rounded. And this thing again is just a shader. It just does a different technique than this one being flat, does a little more
Mm-hmm.
solid black. This one will do a little bit more shading.
What
And then I've got these
how hot do those get when you're? I mean, those things glow red.
to actual temperature, I'm not sure, but I can tell you that it gets so hot that it cauterizes your skin. Your skin just turns white. Like it
Oh
doesn't
gosh.
bleed, it doesn't
Uh-huh.
blister, it just turns white.
White.
So I would assume that we're looking at well over 500
Mm-hmm.
degrees. Yeah.
And then does it matter? Can you do any type of wood, or do you stick towards a certain type of woods, or you get better results with certain types of wood?
Yeah, definitely. So things that here, let me grab, give me just a second. Let me grab a couple of my pieces of
Oh, no
wood and
problem.
I'll kind of show you what I got going on here.
So everybody that's going to be listening to this, if you're listening to a podcast, you're gonna want to check this out on YouTube, because we're doing that. We wanted to start a little thing called like 10 minutes of the goods, where the person that I'm talking to actually shows what they're doing, uh, or shows a little bit of something on the process on what they do or what they specialize in. So you can check this out on YouTube if you are listening to this on the podcast.
Okay, so here is a few good and a few bad things. So, plywood or anything like that that's going to have like a veneer on the top of it is shit. You can't really get very much with it because the amount of heat that comes out of that pen makes the glue from the veneer separate. It
Mm-hmm.
just makes it pop open, and then you get all these kind of weird spots. So I tried to do this for my mom a little while ago because it fits above her stove in like a little spot on her vent or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's on this really thin plywood, and I started doing it, and you probably can't see it, but there's like all these spots where it just like popped up.
Pops. Yeah.
Where, yeah, the veneer just pops off, and then uh, you have a really hard time trying to get it to like look good,
Mm-hmm.
right? So anything with a veneer does not work very well at all, at all. Definitely would say stay away from any sort of plywoods, any sort of MDF, anything that like I tried to do a cabinet door one time. I tried to strip down like a cabinet
Uh-huh.
door. and it was it was so bad. So not a good idea. Um, okay, so then there's things like I do. I've done a decent amount of stuff on bamboo. Like these, I haven't
Oh,
done
cool.
yet, but these are just like cutting boards that
Uh-huh.
I buy at Home Goods or TJ Maxx or
Hmm.
shit, you know. And bamboo works really, really well, but it does need like, oh, how can I explain this? So when you're burning, if it's a really nice hardwood, the burn will stay right where your pin is. If it's a softer wood and the grains and stuff are a little more open, you kind of get this orange hue off of the edge of where you've burned, and it's
It
just the heat kind of transferring through the
okay.
wood.
Not like a like tattoo, like a blowout or anything.
But it kind of looks almost the
Okay.
same.
Uh-huh.
It's not a blowout, but it is kind of like a heat blowout.
Hmm.
I mean, I guess that would be a similar term to use. Um, but in that, you can then finish your whole design, sand it all down, and all of that kind of top heat scorch mark comes off. So,
Okay.
you can get rid of it. Um, I find that for myself, so these are like, this is something that I use quite often. And this is just a basswood plank that I picked up at Michael's. You can get them at
Hmm.
Hobby Lobby and Home Depot and everything else. Basswood works really, really well because it's such a soft wood that any of the ridges that are like the growth lines, the ridges that are in there, they're not so hard that you can't burn through them. There are some things where, oh, where are those things at?
The trays that you do, are those bamboo trays?
They're acacia wood. So I've got one of those sitting here too. But I don't know what kind of wood this is. I'm not sure because I just bought it like online as a bunch of different coasters.
Hmm.
But these rings, these growth rings here, the white part is really, really soft. So with the heat, your wood burner just wants to sink right down into it. But then these harder rings are so hard that you can't like get it to burn. So getting like a consistent line in something that has these really thick growth rings
Hmm.
is really, really difficult. It's very, very hard. Um,
So you like when you're like running lines on there because of the thick, is it like the lines are kind of like, do
oh,
they
you
kind
know
of
what?
go?
I can show you really quick. I'll just do it really fast on this thing and you can kind of see it. It doesn't take very long. Um, but then what I prefer to burn on is stuff like this.
Hmm.
This is acacia wood. These are a lot of the trays that I do and stuff that you'll see me do that are like an actual tray.
Hmm.
Um, Almost all of it is acacia, which is a hardwood, but it doesn't have a ton of the growth rings that go through it. Like I don't know the technical term of what kind of tree it would be, but it's somewhere between like a palm and an actual hardwood
Hmm.
because it doesn't get those same kind of growth rings as other stuff. And it burns really clean and it smells great. It like smells like a campfire. It's
Uh-huh.
wonderful. Um, there are some woods that are really stinky, and you get in here, and I like will stink Dave out worse than the one shot stinks me out of the room.
Can you on those trays too? Have you gold leafed on the trays?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I have. It turns out great. It's really pretty. I've got a couple of, I don't think I have one gold leaf, but I've got a couple of things up there that I'll pull down and show you. Um, Here, I'll show you really fast. I don't know if I can turn, oh, you know what? I can hold it up though. Give me just a second here. Um, I'll just throw a line on this thing and you'll kind
Hmm.
of see what I'm talking about. And the greatest thing about wood burning is this. I just plug this thing in. I'm going to turn it on. Oh, if it's plugged in. Hold on.
So like if someone wants to get started in this, they don't have to buy, like you said, they don't have to buy everything. They can go to like Michael's or Hobby Lobby and just buy
Dude,
like the base model.
if
Like this
you
this
really wanted to get into wood burning or you just wanted to try it, it would cost you a total of like $40 at Michael's. It's really not inexpensive. That's kind of why I picked it up though as a hobby the way that I did was I was
Mhm.
like, here's this like cheap thing that I can just kind of throw away and whatever. I didn't realize that then it was going to make me buy a $500 wood burner,
Uh-huh.
but you know, we'll
Oh,
deal with
ma-
those things as we
if we
come
could
along
still
with
get
it,
those 40% off Hobby Lobby coupons, that would be nice.
right? Let's see if I can show this to you. If it shows up here.
So even pulling a line is not. I mean, it's not a fast. It's like a slow, controlled.
It's just like
Yeah,
tattooing.
yeah.
You can't just whip through it. It's because you have to give the wood enough time to actually burn.
Uh huh.
If I'm just like pull it, just same as tattooing. If I just like rip a line, then there's not been enough time for that skin to be open for the pigment to actually seep into the
Mm-hmm.
spot. Also, if you go too slow, you're just blowing, you're just filling
Mm-hmm.
too much pigment. So it's kind of the same thing. Okay, so on these wood rings, let me see if I can get it. See how right through this like thin spot, it's a really nice consistent line,
Mm-hmm.
but then it hits that little spot and it lightens up. And then up here, see how every time it hits that ring, it's like
I can
thick
see it
and then
darker.
thin
Yeah.
and thick and then
Yep.
thin and thick. So things with the growth rings are really, really difficult. Um, but like this is an uncoated tray. I haven't finished this one up yet, but it's like a little Tibetan flame.
Mm-hmm.
I might do some gold leaf on it. I haven't really decided yet. But because this is all with the grain of the wood and not on around, this flows really, really well. So if you can do things with the grain of wood, it's always easier than doing like the rings.
And
That being said, if you're going to paint any of it, like I use watercolors on some of mine. I think you've seen some of the like ones where I've done where I've painted like the flowers or something like that. If it's with the grain for watercolor, it's really shitty because the watercolor will go down where you put it and then it'll follow the grain and it'll show up 3 inches down the wood in a place that you don't want it.
so it'll kind of bleed through, like
Yeah,
bleed
but
down
it'll
through.
bleed through like I would paint like this ring up here
Mm-hmm.
and then like somewhere like down there'd be like blue that would pop out because it's just followed the open
Uh huh.
spaces in the wood until it can come back up, you know. If you're going to paint stuff, the wood rounds where you have that growth ring where it just sucks in and straight down is way easier.
So I like this, like where people like you've you've made like you have to make these mistakes. Like you have to
Oh
make these
yeah.
mistakes to learn this stuff. And I like that people can hear this.
And
That
I've made them
yeah,
all.
like they like it's not easy. What's one of the biggest things you've done? And I was that a the one I saw looked like a was it a big moth?
The biggest wood burning I've ever done was for a bakery up in Benicia, California. I did a sign for them that just says One House Bakery, and it's just their logo. And that was the first time that I figured out that plywood was not the thing to do it on because I already had it cut out and it was already on a sign and I already had a deadline and I had to just get through it. But never again will I do something on plywood.
Now that
Um,
wood prices have tripled also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gotten really difficult to like do. It's been difficult, but the biggest thing that I've done for myself was probably that big round moth that was like about 3 feet
Mhm.
wide, and it was probably about 2.5 feet in the circle around it. And those things do take quite a long time to get through. Um, but so what I do like right now, where I'm gonna kind of talk about like where I
Mhm.
source materials for a minute because
Mhm.
that's where it gets really hard with wood burning is finding things to wood burn. Oddly enough, it is quite difficult to find stuff like these little trays and stuff, and or at least maybe I should. It's not difficult to find them. It's difficult to find them at a price that is worth
Okay.
doing and
Yeah.
then reselling,
Mhm.
right? They're really hard to find in any sort of bulk load order or anything like that. I've looked at restaurant supply places. I've looked at import supply places. I've looked all over. I've scoured Amazon and everything. And usually, if you find them at places like that, they're like, $20 to $40 a piece, and then turning around and trying to sell a 8-inch tray, no matter how much artwork you did on it, for over $100, because that's what you need to get out of it, is insane, right? So I have found a loophole, and I find a lot of these things at TJ Maxx and Home Goods and Ross and stuff like that, where I'll go in and I'll look in their kitchen section and I'll just like pull cool cutting boards or pull cool trays, and they're cheap enough too that I can actually then afford to do the work on them and only sell them for like $50-$75 and still make good money off of it and all of that kind of stuff. So the sourcing of this kind of stuff gets a little hard. Like there's a local dispensary in town that wants me to make rolling trays for them, and I would love to, but I get really scared about putting them in there because I don't know how long I can find the trays to refill when people just buy them or whatever.
How does everybody look at you at TJ Maxx and when they're like, why is this lady grabbing up all the trays and cutting boards here? What is she cooking?
So the last time I was in Ross, I was in our local Ross downtown, and they don't know me, but they kind of know my face, and I stand out or whatever. In my little town, there's only a few people that look like this. But I walked in and the lady said, I checked you out the last time that you came through and you had all these wood trays too. And she said, are you opening a restaurant? And I was like, no. And she was like, what could you possibly be doing with all of these things? And I was like, I just make art out of them. And then she looked at me even weirder, like, what the fuck kind of art do you make out of these wood trays?
What are you building?
And I had to pull out my phone and like show her. And then she was like, oh, that's beautiful. And I was like, oh yeah, like it does make sense. I promise. I'm not just a crazy lady buying all the wood things in your shop. But yeah, I do get some weird looks when I'm walking up there with like a stack of 25 wooden trays and cutting boards. And they're just like, what the shit, woman?
What are you doing?
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
It's like when you find a good deal on them, you gotta hide some of those things behind something, and so you can come back and grab them, so no one else buys them up.
I would be lying if I told you I hadn't hidden a few things inside of Home Goods a few times, because
you gotta move them to a different section.
You just put them over in the baby shit. No one ever looks in the baby shit. Yeah, totally, for sure. I have. Let me see. I've got a couple things. So this would be one where it's like uncoated. So what I do with this, let me see if I can find one that I haven't. Okay, so the thing with wood stuff is that unless you're buying something that is raw wood, you have to strip it or sand it, because once you start burning, if it's any sort of chemical or like a polyurethane or a wax coating or anything like that, all of that, one, is really bad for you to breathe in. Really, really gnarly. It makes your whole garage smell like shit. But then also it's going to affect your burn. Your burn is going to have to be going through all that wax and all that polyurethane to even get to the wood, and it gets really gummy and stuff. So this is what they kind of look like when I first buy them. They're kind of a darker wood. And then I just take a disc sander, like a hand sander, like a little mouse or whatever. And for these things, I just sand them down. I don't put any sort of stripper or anything like that on them. I just sand them. And that seems to be just fine. For the skateboards that I do, all skateboards come with like a polyurethane coating on them. And that one is a lot harder to get off. If you try and sand all the way through that, you're just going to burn through sandpaper like crazy. But a good paint stripper from Home Depot works great. You just paint it on and give it a few minutes and then scrape it off as much as you can, and then sand it with like, I almost always start with like 120 grit, and then I do like a 400, and then I'll do like 1,000 and sometimes even a 1,500 before I start wood burning, just so everything is, nice. If you hit it with 1,000 and a 1,500, not only are you smoothing it out, but then you're also kind of packing any holes that would be in the wood with all that little fine sawdust, which just helps the burn all together. So the prep process in some of this stuff is a little longer. Like when we were talking earlier about how people just don't see the process, right?
What goes
Like,
into it? Yeah.
like just for me to get to here,
Mm-hmm.
and this isn't even finished, is quite a lot of like fucking elbow grease that
Mm-hmm.
gets you there, you know? So then I would take it and I would do like, I'd sand it down so it's sanded and all of the coating is off. And almost always I'll take like a washcloth with some like mineral spirits on it, kind of wipe it down so it gets all of the extra grit off of it. And then usually I have to let it dry overnight because mineral spirit sinks into wood really, really, really hard. Um, and then so I used to draw everything by hand. A couple years ago, I got an iPad. Helps a ton. Ma- Massively
Yeah.
cool investment for any artist, for sure. Even if you're not using what you draw as an end result, it helps Dave in laying out letters, helps just kind of come up with ideas and being able to do all of that right
That
in
I've been using them for mock-ups,
yeah.
for walls for people. It's been nice. I go there with the phone, take a picture, throw it on the iPad. I've been using Procreate, and it's nice. I can so they can see something, like they have a
Yeah.
visual of it, and
It also just helps the like you know, because you were tattooing back when we were all drawing
mm-hmm.
things by hand and shit like that, right?
Oh yeah,
um
yeah.
the idea of like changing your mind on the iPad is so much easier than changing your mind in reality. When you're in the middle of a project and you're like, man, this thing isn't working, but I don't want to have to start over at zero, so you just try
Yeah.
and push through this not
Uh-huh.
working thing. The iPad makes it so much easier to be like, oh, this isn't working, okay, back to the drawing board. 10 minutes is wasted, 10 minutes and I'll be caught up to where I needed to be, you know? So iPad stuff helps
I probably still have some of
immensely.
these like old tattoo magazines. I would have to do all my line drawings on because I would use transfer paper and have to
Yeah.
do it all. We'd have to do it by hand,
Yeah.
and I would get so mad because I'd have a magazine, and I'd have all those lines from where I've done other ones before, and I'd go to do another transfer, and my pen would pick up that an indent,
Like
and
slip and
I'm like,
yep.
it's all over. This iPad has been a game changer.
I was really anti iPad. Like I definitely had some of that. Even though I don't traditionally tattoo, as far as like my imagery of my
Mm-hmm.
tattoos, I was raised an old school
Mm-hmm.
traditional tattooer. So there is a part of me that's like coil machines, make your own
Uh-huh.
needles, fucking, you know, fix your own shit. Like there's definitely this part of me that kind of screams at me back there in the back of my head that iPad isn't real art, and you know, just all of this kind of shit, right? But then I picked it up and it just, I always say it's the tool that allows me to be happier, because I don't get
Yeah.
angry about people not liking what I drew anymore. I don't get angry if someone wants to change something, because it's not 4 hours of my effort that they want
Mm-hmm.
to change now. It's like, oh, okay, go get a coffee and come back. I'll have a change for you by the time you're back. You know, it just makes, for tattooing specifically, I can't imagine being a tattooer without an iPad at this point. And for sign painting and like helmet mock up and all of that
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff, it's so nice to be able to just set a helmet up on your table, take a couple pictures in a few different angles, throw it into your iPad, sketch shit. Even if you don't print anything out off of your iPad, even if you never ever actually like finish a drawing, just to get your ideas going and get like what you think your brain is going to have it look like be somewhere that you
Mm-hmm.
can physically look at it. It's so nice.
It's where I get
It's
where I mess up. I get lost in layers, and I'm like, did I just draw on the wrong layer? Like, oh my
Davey had a
gosh,
hard time with the layers for
the
sure.
layers is what gets me. So you use it to mock up the wood burning. Do you just
I
take you
use it to
take a
mock
picture
up.
of like the piece and then draw and see kind of what it would look like? And
Yeah, yeah. So I do it's all on my, I don't think I can close this and show you my
uh
screen from my iPad, can I?
I I don't know. It might log you out.
Yeah, I don't think I can. So what I'll do a lot of times is I'll take a picture of this like flat,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I'll just put it into my iPad and I just draw over the top of it to try and kind of get an idea of how it's going to lay with the wood grain. Because some things I actually do use the wood grain and try and incorporate that into my design to some degree. And then some things I'm just laying it over the wood and it doesn't really matter, you know. But it's really nice to be able to just kind of see about what it's going to look like, right? Or like the skateboards, I can take a picture of a skateboard. I can have the exact shape of my skateboard in my iPad, and that way I know I'm not like doing things that are off the edges that aren't really going to show up or whatever, you know. So it's super helpful. It's really changed the game, the iPad stuff. So what I'll do is I'll get whatever design I want drawn up. I then print it out on my computer or on my printer with paper. I cut it out or tape it together, do whatever Frankenstein stuff I got to do to make it, you know, one picture.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just hand transfer all my stencils. There's a few different ways that you can transfer wood burning stencils. Some ways would be like if you have one of those laser jet printers, they have some paper where you can print it out and you can flip the design over and you can just heat transfer the ink off of the inkjet onto your thing. I don't have an inkjet printer, so I don't do it that way. There's also another thing that you can get that's, if I can remember the name of the product, it's some sort of masking agent that is in like with all the acrylic paint stuff at Michael's.
Is it liquid?
Liquid? Yeah,
Is
I
it,
think
is it liquid or something you can paint it on? I know what you're
yeah,
talking
like
about.
you can paint it on and then turn your design over and stick it down.
Yeah.
And then like take the rest of the paper off and it just keeps the ink part. I've never done that in reality. I just know that it's a possibility.
Same. I
But
don't know. I know of it. I don't know anybody who's used it, but everybody.
I
I know what you're
watched a
talking
couple
about. Yeah.
videos of it
Yeah.
years ago and it looked like a fucking mess. It
Yeah.
just
That's everybody knows what it is, but no one. I don't know anybody that uses that.
I think it's too messy.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's too messy for me because then you have to like rub all the paper off of the thing. And I'm like, man, I can just do it by hand in the same amount of time, you know? So I'll then like line it all up, tape it down with masking tape, put a piece of carbon paper underneath it, and just trace it. What I get questions about more often than not is like these thick lines. So these thicker ones, people will always ask me if I just pull those with like one of the thicker pins that I was showing you earlier. And I don't. And that's why they're as clean as they are. I actually cut in both sides of these lines with one of those
With a
knives
blade.
and
Yeah.
fill
Nice.
in between. And that just, I find, gives you a much cleaner outside line so that the outside is really, really nice and crisp. If I just tried to burn this just like with one of my wider pins and just like ran it through, you would have this weird kind of fuzz around the edge where every one of those layers of wood is a little different, you know? So I actually do cut in both sides and then fill in. And that's what I start doing. So what I do is I'll go through the whole thing and I'll do the whole outline, all of the outline. And then almost always, inevitably, there's little pencil marks left where I didn't, you know, get right up to the line or I adjusted it as I was burning it or whatever. And so then I'll take some sandpaper again and I start with like a 400 grit and I sand it all and then do 1,000 and kind of sand it again. And sometimes in that, depending on how deep you burned or how non-deep you burned, sometimes you'll have to run over some of the lines again because they kind of get filled with sawdust. Or you can take like I have a little brush like this that just sits in my wood burning kit, and sometimes I'll just sit there and just kind of brush the little you know sawdust out of the little spots or whatever, and that works too. And then I'll go back and I'll start filling in all of the darker spots and stuff like that and getting all the texture and the details and things like that. And then let me see. I've got a couple pieces up here that are finished that are not shiny coated that I can show you. So this is like a little like cooking trivet, like a pot trivet. Let me see if I can get some light on this really fast. So Like,
How many hours for something like something like that designed?
I want to say this was maybe like 10 ish, give or take a little
Hmm.
bit. Let me see if I can get it kind of closer.
Oh, you can even see the shading and the dot work in there. Yeah.
Yeah, so like these would have all been double lined, these thicker lines.
Hmm.
These things right here I just did with dots so that they're just kind of shaded through there. Um, all of these are like single line bits where I just did one line around. And I don't think I did any like pulled shading on this thing. I think this was just kind of the line work.
Hmm.
But so then this is obviously like a food thing. So I wouldn't want to coat it with an epoxy resin because that's toxic and you don't want to put any of your food on that kind of stuff. And so for things like this, I use, where's it at? Watco is a company that does like sealants and
Hmm.
polyurethane and stuff like that. And they have this butcher block oil and finish, and it's food safe. So you can use this as a charcuterie board and put cheese and meat on it if you
Hmm.
wanted, or you could just put a pot on it, you know. But it's really important that if you're going to do like wooden spoons, because a lot of people do kitchen stuff when they're wood
Hmm.
burning, that you use something that is food safe like this. Teak oil is also
Hmm.
something that people use a lot. I've also used olive oil and just kind of rubbed it down, you know, given it a
Hmm.
condition with olive oil, and that works really well too. Um, and then this one actually has some shading in it. So this is a bigger like bowl. This would be like a fruit bowl, you know,
Hmm.
that I don't know, you could use for all kinds of different stuff. But this one you can actually see a little bit more of the shading that I've kind of
Oh yeah,
pulled out in the
there's a lot
corner
of detail in
here.
that.
There is a lot of
Yeah.
detail in this thing. This is for a really good friend of mine that lives down in Los Angeles, but I haven't been able
Hmm.
to see her in a year,
Oh
and she
yeah,
wanted
yeah.
me to give it to her in person and not mail it to
Hmm.
her. So this one's already spoken for. But this is like I found this piece of wood at Target. I paid
Hmm.
I think $14 for it or something like that, 15
Hmm.
bucks for it, you know. So not crazy expensive as far as the investment goes. A lot cheaper than some of the one shot shit and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I just brought it home and I did the elbow grease work of sanding it and getting it ready and all of that stuff. But then at the end of it, like I obviously am not going to sell this to my friend, but if I were
Hmm.
going to sit this on a table and sell it, I would be selling it for probably between 80 and $100. Super worth it. And
Hmm.
people totally dig it, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and I would say hour wise, this thing probably took me, I don't know, 20, 25 maybe, probably.
That's a lot of time. People don't. That's like people get it. Like it's not a fast process.
No,
Oh
it's
gosh.
not. And most of us artists are putting like in comparison. So this is, sorry, this is going to be a gripe that
Oh
I'm going
no.
to let go for a second. But like I can do something like that where I bought the piece of wood, the bowl was already made for me. All I had to do was sand it and fucking
Hmm.
unfinish it, and then everything beyond that was just my time.
Hmm.
You know, regardless, it wasn't. It was just my time. The wood burner isn't something that runs out like paint. I do have to replace them sometimes because they do break and they do wear out, but we're talking like over, you know, years, not I ruined one brush on this one thing I painted, which you've done before, I'm
Oh.
sure, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. Um, what bothers me, I guess, about some of the art stuff is that like Dave can do a cutout where he designed the whole thing, be it iPad or by hand, and then took a whole piece of plywood and cut the whole thing out and sealed all the sides and the edges of it, and then primered the whole fucking thing, and then given it a base coat, and then laid a stencil on it, and then painted the inside, and then did all the details, and then outlined the whole fucking thing. and he'll put that thing up for $150 and people are like, ugh, $150, like that's so much fucking money. And you're like, do you realize that that literally came from his brain? Like, there, for that to be here physically, for you to hold it, everything about that came out of
Mm-hmm.
that guy's hand. Where I'm buying things at Ross and like fucking putting a fancy design on top of it, and people are like, oh my god, that's so awesome. And I'm like, it still takes a lot of work, but I don't think people realize how much work us artists are willing to go through in order to
Mm-hmm.
just have something that we're like, here, let me sell this to you, you know. And so then when an artist asks for a price, almost all the way across the board, now there are some artists that think that they're fancy ass shit and they're worth more than they think they are, you know, there is that. But most of the time when an artist is asking you to pay a price, it's worth it, and they're
Mm-hmm.
probably being underpaid.
Mm-hmm. Like the whole wood burning thing, you have the process, like the trials that you had to go through to say like, oh, this isn't gonna work. Shoot, you had to learn all this.
Yes.
So you are like you said, like you bought the piece of wood, but I mean that's how you have to get that's how you get it. You have to
Yeah.
buy it, but you had to go through trials and tribulations just to figure out this works, this doesn't work. I
Oh, and I've
don't do
ruined,
this, don't do that.
I've
Yeah.
thrown away things from Ross that I
Uh,
fucking have bought and thought was
yeah.
going to be really cool, and it was not. You know, there's definitely been some trial and error in
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and some wasted materials and some wasted time, and yeah, there's definitely been all of that that's gotten me to this point for sure. But just putting it out there to the people listening, if an artist has a price on something, it's usually
Mhm.
underpaying them for the effort that they've put through. So you should probably just pay it and maybe even give them a little more.
Yes. Yes. And shout outs and everything and yeah.
Really, honestly, like those, like the skateboards that I do, right? They take between 30 and 50 hours of work
Mhm.
very easily. I generally sell skateboards between 300 and 600 bucks a piece, which sounds kind of like a lot for a skateboard deck, but not when you break it down to that being like literally sometimes less than $5 an hour for myself. And I don't know too many people that are willing to work
Mhm.
for $5 an hour, much less passionately work for $5 an
It's a
hour.
piece of art.
Yeah,
It's
and
a
so
piece of
like
art
it's,
that yeah.
I love it. I love wood burning and I love creating things, and I would rather sell those things I create and get them out the door and in other
Mhm.
people's hands than pay myself some exuberant wage in order to make things.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, when I say it's $300 a skateboard, don't cough at me because I'm still not paying
Yeah.
myself very much money, you
Uh,
know. Yeah.
do you for the skate, like all the wood burning stuff, how if, someone is interested in purchasing something, um where like website, that kind of stuff. And I know I put stuff down. It'll be in like the description and everything. But for someone to hear it, if someone's driving right now and they're like, "Gosh, I want to look this up. I want to check her stuff out. I want to purchase something." Where do people go to find you, um, and to check out everything?
So right now, one of my COVID things that I was supposed to get done that I haven't gotten done is building a website. I don't have a
Mhm.
website currently. Right now, I'm pretty much selling everything through like Instagram.
Mhm.
Like, if I post it up and it doesn't say it's sold underneath it, it's probably still around and available. Um, I pretty much sell everything through my Instagram right now.
Mhm.
My Instagram or locally, there are some things like I do have some wood burnings down at the tattoo shop that are in the lobby and in my station that are for sale, um, and then we hit up the shows. So if you catch us at a
Mhm.
show, you know, obviously everything there is for sale. But for the most part, it's just my Instagram, which is just at Jeana Jane Tattoos. Jeana is spelled Jeana. I'm a weird one. It's like jeans with an A. Um,
But I like that if you go to her Instagram, and you will learn how to pronounce her name correctly.
I do have it on
Like,
my
yes,
profile.
it's so you do pronounce it. You will pronounce it correctly. It is broken down.
It is there for
Yeah.
you for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. It doesn't bother me when people mispronounce my name at all. It's happened my whole life. My mom gave me a very unique name. I just think it's funny because it's also very phonetic. If the female gene is exactly that way with an
Uh-huh.
A on the end of it. So it's pretty phonetic, but most people try to make it fancier than it is,
Uh-huh.
you know?
So yes, that's her. So I wrote well what you sent me before. So Instagram at Jeana Jane Tattoos, and also Twitter at Jeana Jane Tattoos.
Yeah, I do have a Twitter that's the same.
Well,
Um, Other than that, there is a Facebook page of Jeana Jane Tattoos, but don't message me there because I probably won't get to it
well,
for
yeah, I'm doing the
months
same
of.
thing. I'm slowly working to have whole getting things off of Facebook. So
Yeah,
I,
I
I'm
just
I'm liking Instagram.
it's still there, and I'm pretty sure even my photos from Instagram get posted to my Facebook page, I think. But man, I don't really fuck with Facebook, and it's real hard to get me to. So if you really want to get a hold of me, you can also email me at GinaJaneTattoos@yahoo.com. That's my direct email for art commissions only. If it's tattoo stuff, follow the instructions on my Instagram profile because there is a wait list and a way that I kind of work through all of that tattoo stuff. But if it's art commissions and stuff, you can feel free to email me. Again, GinaJaneTattoos@yahoo.com. Um, and other than that, you can shoot me a direct message on Instagram or comment on a picture that you like, and I'm pretty good about responding to people.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for doing this.
Oh, dude,
I
no problem.
appreciate it. So
I appreciate it.
this is going to be out. It's on YouTube. It's actually live on YouTube right now, live on Facebook, um, and will be available on most anything you listen to on podcasts. So it's at Artists of the Goods, artists with an S, Artists of the Goods podcast. Um, thank you, and I'm really looking forward for a Wallace IG
Oh,
account. Just let you know, an IG Wallace account
do you want
for
me
the
to
dog.
show you the big skateboard I brought home
Oh
before
yes, yes.
this?
So I want people to
Not
see
enough.
this because it was I saw it posted on there.
This is the only thing with gold leaf on it that I have in the house right now. So this is already sold, but this is a big skateboard that I did with like a split skull and some Tibetan flames on it. It's got some white highlights on the skull there, and then
Has it
two
got a
different,
gold tooth?
yeah.
Oh
So
yes.
there's a straight gold on it right in the tooth, and then here in the lotus flower, and then the rest of it is a black. No, this one's a blue variegated gold. Um, which I get all my gold leaf from Coast Airbrush and in Anaheim. They're fantastic people. If you ever have any questions or anything, their customer service is full of knowledgeable guys that know how to use all of this custom art stuff. Um, and then all my skateboard decks come from Skateboard Connection, who is a guy that's in Southern California. He does a great job of getting cases of skateboards of whatever size that you'd possibly want out to artists. Really, really cool dude. Good prices. Worth looking at.
Then on this I'll shoot you a message because I'll put some of that in the description, like the skateboard connections, Coast Airbrush, the certain links for some of the stuff you use.
Yeah, that'd be
I
great.
might as well put it out there. So well, thank you.
Yeah, and
Um,
to anyone listening too, I've got no secrets. So if it's something that you want to get into or something that you have some questions with or you're struggling with, please feel free to contact me through Instagram or whatever. And like I said, I'm happy to answer questions or help you troubleshoot if need be.
cool. Well, thank you. I
No
appreciate it.
problem.
You have a
Thank you,
good night.
Johnny.
Yes. Yeah.
It was
Thank
so
you.
nice to see your face. Hopefully we
Yes.
get to see each other in person soon.
Yes.
Yes.
We
Could
will.
be.
Thank you.
Bye, Johnny.
Bye.